guys, what's up and welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be about how I personally have overcome binge eating. Now, I've come across a lot of these videos before in my past, and a lot of them seem to kind of have the same basic tips like don't go out and buy snack food and leave them in the house. This video is not going to be like that. This is going to be a no BS style video. I personally have suffered from binge eating before, so this is just tips that I have learned that have helped me overcome those kind of thoughts. So I'm going to be going over like mental things that you can do as well as physical things. 6 tips from my personal experience that I have used to overcome binge eating. In the beginning of the year, kind of got back into those mental thoughts of binging and just kind of going ham in the kitchen, which is not a healthy mindset to have. I've kind of dove a little bit deeper into the mental game of binge eating recently because of that, and I have overcome it yet again. So here are my raw, real, and honest 6 tips that will help you stop binge eating. So the first tip that I have for you guys is to get rid of the all or nothing mentality, aka black and white thinking. Black and white thinking I've talked about before on my channel, but it's basically like when you think of something as very extreme, it's either this or that. There's no gray area. So for example, you have beautiful and you have ugly, you have success and then you have fail. And I struggle with this mentality and this thought process every day of my life, which I think is one of the reasons why I personally have dealt with binge eating before. When you binge, you kind of have this perfection of your diet of what it should and should not be. There is no gray. You either abide by your diet or you don't. You kind of create this perfect ideal diet for yourself. Just the littlest slip up will create failure, so you just kind of say screw it and then you just fail the rest of the day. So for example, if you're like, I'm gonna have this for breakfast, I'm gonna have this for lunch, this for dinner, no snacking, I am not gonna eat this, not do this, and then you eat like one chip or you eat one fry, you're just like, screw it, I am done, and then you just go ham because you already failed. So what's the point of eating a ton of other stuff because you've already failed? You create a sense of control over that, and when you fail, if you have the black and white mentality, you don't even care, which leads to more binging. So when you get rid of this and give yourself, you know, like a bowl of ice cream at night, or give yourself the opportunity to have some burgers and fries when you go out with your friends, challenging that black and white thinking, release the need to control every perfect little aspect of your diet. When you think in black and white terms, you think of perfect scenarios, which again is unrealistic, so it's just ultimately going to lead you to failure. Have, you know, a pizza but eat a salad with it. That doesn't mean you're failing. That's gray thinking rather than black and white thinking. So challenge that belief if you are a black and white thinker, and it will help tremendously. It's a little bit hard in the beginning, but again, every time you challenge it a little bit and a little bit, you'll become less of a black and white thinker and more of a gray thinker. So the second step that I have for you is to stop trying to fight it. I recently read in a book that says try not to think of an elephant. Like right now, try not to think of an elephant. Like it's almost impossible not to have an elephant pop up in your head. This theory is called the ironic process theory, which is defined as a psychological process whereby deliberate attempts to suppress certain things will make them more likely to surface. So you're ultimately saying don't do this. The more that you feed into that don't mentality, the more you're gonna do it. Your desire to not do something is creating you to resist and fight those thoughts. Put into play the ironic process theory, the thought ultimately becomes stronger, which means your desire becomes stronger, which means that you're feeding into that thought until eventually you're gonna have to submit because mentally you're exhausting yourself. That desire to not want to do something is ultimately painful, which is ultimately the vicious cycle of what binging thoughts are. You have a binging thought and you think, don't do that. Okay, and then you think, why am I having these thoughts? Think of something else, and you ultimately create this stronger don't do that. And again, the ironic process theory, the stronger that those thoughts are to and desires not to do something, you're gonna ultimately feed into those thoughts and do it. Just like try not to think of an elephant. The key to this is to stop agreeing with the thought. So how do we do that? Reverse psychology. Instead of saying things like, I can't have this, or I should be eating this instead of this, or I shouldn't be eating this right now, reverse psychology and say, I choose to eat this, or I get to have this. purpose. So when you're eating, like, let's say a salad versus a burger, if you are a binge eater and you kind of have like negative thoughts in terms of food, you think, I shouldn't be eating this burger, I can't have the fries with it. And then when you eat the salad, you're like, oh, I wish that I could have the burger, I should be eating the burger right now, the burger sounds really good. And instead of doing that, when you're eating the salad, say, I get to have this salad, I'm choosing this salad over the burger. And when you reverse psychology that, you are no longer agreeing with that can't thought, those binging thoughts, and you aren't feeding into the thought, therefore the ironic process theory just goes out the drain. The third tip that I have for you guys is to release the need to respond. So this kind of ties into the second tip. When you have a binging thought, those I can't do this, I shouldn't be having this, don't go into the pantry and eat that food, listen to it, see it, and don't feed into it. The reason why we become so overwhelmed with our binge eating thoughts is because A, we repeat it over and over and over and over and into our head, which B, feeds into the narrative of that story that we're creating for ourselves in our head, and ultimately attaching more thoughts into the negative binging thoughts. For example, you say, I can't have this. Then you think, why am I thinking this? I should stop thinking about this. Oh my God, I'm getting overwhelmed. Don't go in the pantry. Like, you're literally just feeding and attaching more and more thoughts into it, making it stronger. And then C, we resist it and fight it, which takes us back around into the vicious cycle. But every time we go through that cycle of the binge eating, we're just making it stronger and stronger and stronger, creating just more intense resentment towards those thoughts, a stronger desire to want to stop having those thoughts. And desiring is wanting, which leads to more suffering, which leads to more desire, which leads to the urge to go binge so that we no longer have these thoughts. And this vicious cycle and this suffering is completely gone. And then we fail, and then we think about like all the negative things that happened. So the fourth tip that I have for you guys is to find out what your true desire is. Are you really, truly desiring food? Are you really hungry right now? Odds are, if you are a binger, no, you are not. There could be different things that your body is craving and ultimately feeding it through the desire to binge. For example, my binging trigger is being bored. When I don't have anything to do, I feel the need to snack and do something. I get very restless, I get very bored, and therefore I feed into my boredom with binging and eating because I have nothing else to do, and it feeds my soul, literally. That could be a problem. And when you find out your true desire, you can work towards fulfilling that desire rather than using the food to replace that desire. It can also be that you're really thirsty. A lot of the times we don't really consume enough hydration within our day, so when we're super thirsty, we think we're super hungry, but really we're not. We're just really thirsty. Something a little bit deeper is feeding into your emotions. A lot of the times if we are going through something troubling, like a breakup, a death, something emotionally just draining us, we feed into those emotions by thinking that binging is going to give us some sort of happiness in the moment because the food is good. But ultimately this leads to lack of control, more suffering, and ultimately like lower self-esteem. So find out what your true desire is and try working on that true desire. Like, what is the purpose of binging for you? Is it, like me, you're bored, you're thirsty, 3, you're feeding into emotions, or the very rare occasion is that you really are hungry, you're starving. And if you're starving yourself, your body will crave food, and when it runs into food, because you are already starving your body, it's going to grasp and want as much food as it can to hold on to, because you're basically starving yourself. And that's kind of like another vicious cycle in itself, because when you're starving yourself, when your body runs into food, because your body is starving, it's gonna hold on to all the fat, hold on to all the sugar, and hold on to the calories, creating fat because your body is in survival mode. You're starving yourself. So you're basically gonna gain like a ton of weight when you do binge if you are in the process of starving yourself, which is what I used to do back in my college days. So ultimately you're binging because your body is looking for nutrients and stability in your diet, which leads me to tip number 6, and that is getting nutrient dense meals in your diet, which will release your cravings and ultimately help with your binge eating disorder. I said tip number 6, but it's actually tip number 5. So my mentality over the past year that has helped me overcome binging is bigger meals, less snacking. There's ultimately 4 things that I look for in every single meal. It has to be rich in protein, include healthy fats, like avocados, nuts, oils, have some carbs in it, whether that's fruit or grains. And then it also has to have fiber, which comes from veggies. So this one's kind of interesting if you think about it in terms of our brain. Back in the day when we were hunter and gatherers, our brains were wired a specific way for survival. And we are still living with those brains, with those mechanisms, but we're living in a completely different world than we were back then. We live in a world of abundance, choice, and variety, whereas back in the day we lived in survival mode. But we're still living with the same brains, and our brains are still wired the exact same way. So we still crave those fats, sugars, nutrients, and calories that we craved back in the day. But when you look at our food nowadays, it is not nutrient-dense food. We are living in a world of chemicals, GMOs, artificial flavors, deep fried foods, like ultimately no nutrients. So we eat the foods that are lacking in nutrients, that are high in fat, high in sugar, high in calories, but our brains don't see the difference between the good fats and the bad fats, the good sugars and the bad sugars. All it sees is that it's providing us with fat, it's providing us with the sugar for energy, and we crave more of that because that's what our brains were wired to get into our body for survival. So when we eat these really low nutrient dense food but that are high in all those other things like burgers, fried foods, ice cream, our brains light up. They're like, yes, 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 fat, sugar, like that's good, we want that. So we're getting these super, super high calorie foods with all this fat and stuff in it, but ultimately we are starving ourselves nutritionally, which makes our brains still crave food even though we're full because we are lacking specific nutrients that we also need in order to survive. So we keep eating more of those foods, but again, we're starving ourselves nutritionally. They're empty calories, so we're still craving more. So when we binge on these low nutrient dense snacks, like I told you, ice cream, fried foods, like really, really unhealthy, no nutrition food, our body gets into this cycle of repeating it because we keep craving more, thinking that we're gonna get some sort of nutrients from it, when really we're not going to. So I personally used to binge on like a ton of different snacks, like Teddy Grahams, you know, like cereals and unhealthy chips, things that have no nutrition but are high in sugars, calories, and fat. And I still wanted more, so I'd keep binging and keep eating, which creates again this vicious cycle, and you ultimately gain weight, you feel lethargic, you're still craving more and you don't know why you're still getting these cravings. Mentally, you are suffering as well as now physically, which leads to guilt and more of the vicious cycle. Which leads me to tip number 6, the real tip number 6, which is understanding the mental aspect of binging. So this one is where it gets good. I gotta get comfortable for this one because this is where I feel a lot of my binging comes from. Let's get into the world of mentality. We are constantly being thrown pictures, commercials, ads, social media posts, movies, celebrities, magazines of the ideal body type of the moment. This ideal type that we are being thrown is not real. It is airbrushed. They are altered. Waists and butts are altered. Thigh gaps are created. There's plastic surgery that's involved. We also have makeup. When you can't afford plastic surgery, now we have makeup that we contour on our faces to give us the appearance of a smaller nose, higher cheekbones, no double chin. Like all of these things combined create a fake ideal body type that we're being shoved every single day into our faces. And it's extremely unhealthy to strive for this body type when in reality it doesn't even exist, which is step number 1 in their game. To be fed this body type in all different sorts of ways 24/7. Now comes step number 2 in their game, which is our desire to want that body. If you're constantly being thrown it and you aren't looking the same way as what you're constantly being shown, you feel that you are lacking something and therefore need something to get that body type. So here comes the product placement, the sales, the social media posts, the business, the big bucks. This is how they make their money. They create weight loss products, flat tummy teas, waist trainers, plastic surgery, and they display it on billboards, ads, commercials, social media posts. Every which way you look, there's some sort of product that will get you what you are lacking. Now let's look at us, the consumer. We are now in comparison mode. We are mentally in the state of desire to be and get that ideal body type of the moment. When I say moment, I mean it is constantly changing. The body type that was being shoved in our faces in the 40s, 50s is not going to be the same body type that's being displayed to us now. We have the Kardashians. That style was not ideal 20 years ago. 20 years ago, it was model, stick thin. It's constantly changing because when they sell these products, people buy into them, use them for a little while, realize that they're not working, i.e. Diet Cokes, low calorie, low fat snacks, artificial flavors. They find out that it's not working for them, it's actually doing the opposite, so they change the body type, the media game of what this ideal body type is to sell different products and a new type of product, which is all just business, honestly. There's always going to be a new fad diet, a new fad product that people want to get, because the media is constantly changing that ideal type of body. You know, now we have intermittent fasting, we have high carb, low fat, high carb vegan diets. We have juice cleanses. We have keto diet. Like, there's always something new that's going to be displayed to us and that we're gonna ultimately feed into and gonna make them tons of money. Whenever I see like things on products now that are constantly being displayed on certain things, like especially packaged foods, keto friendly, keto friendly, keto friendly, keto friendly. It's like, to me, that's like, oh, ding, ding, ding. Maybe that's a marketing scam. Like, I'm not gonna buy into it. I'm gonna buy whole plant-based foods from the earth, you know, like that give me the vital nutrients that I need. I'm not going to buy into these fad, quick little diet and fitness programs that are being constantly thrown in my face that I don't feel is beneficial to me or my body or my mentality. So I'm currently editing this video and I just want to say, it's not that I don't ever eat these products, but I don't get them to give me whatever they're trying to sell. So if I have like a Diet Coke, I'm not going to drink that instead of regular Coke because it's going to help me lose weight. I drink it because I like the flavor of it. I don't want this to kind of like take away from the first lesson that I taught, which was the black and white thinking. I feel like if you are super strict with your diet, like you never buy these products or eat these products, that's more of a black and white thinking. So I'm trying to say here is basically like, don't buy the products that are made to give you this body type. If you're gonna have the products because you enjoy them, I feel like that's very different than like getting the products to give you some sort of body type. I hope that made sense. So instead of buying into their little marketing game, stick to the professionals. Go to your doctors, go to your nutritionist, go to your dietitian. Make sure that if you have a personal trainer that they're licensed. Don't buy into these quick fix diet, I want to say scams, but I think some of them do have benefits, but like they're ultimately driving you to buy certain products for their financial gain. And you'll see it fluctuate. The reason why it goes in and out, in and out, in and out is because the market is constantly shifting. What are the consumers going to buy into next? I'm a huge believer that what you think, what you put the majority of your energy on thought-wise, you will see flourish into your life. So when the media is constantly, and when I say constantly, like 24/7 shoving things into our faces and getting us to compare ourselves and create lack and need in our lives, the more energy that we place on that, that's what we will become. Which is why I think marketers do it 24/7 and find any which way and need to shove it in your face. So when you see this, instead of buying into their game, feed into your positive thoughts. Don't look in the mirror and think, my waist is too big, or I don't have a thigh gap, my butt is too small. Focus on your good qualities. What do you like about yourself? What do you have that you're very proud of? Whatever the case is, focus and feed your energy into the thoughts about what you like about yourself. Instead, when that's happening to us because we can't really escape it nowadays, focus on what you do love about yourself and focus on those, and the more you feed into those thoughts, the better it will flourish into your life. And you'll exude confidence and the ideal type of body that you prefer, and just perfecting your body. If you think about what the world would be like if we weren't being displayed these commercials and ads and movies and all this stuff, would we be having these thoughts about our bodies? No, because we would have nothing to really compare our bodies to. We would take care of it, appreciate our bodies, and we wouldn't look at it the way that I feel like a lot of society looks at their bodies now. When we have these negative thoughts and we feed into them, our self-esteem lowers, which ultimately creates lack of emotional maturity. And emotional maturity helps the ability to delay gratification. Like, I like cakes, but I'm not gonna have it every single day. I'm delaying my gratification now so that I can have greater pleasure in the future. I read a quote in a book. I'll leave the book linked in the description box if you guys want to check it out. Self-esteem stimulates the desire to invest in ourselves and provides energy for self-discipline. When you feed into the positive thoughts about your body, instead of buying into this game, you will completely see your life shift. So I really hope that you guys got some sort of beneficial gain from this and will help you with any binge eating disorder or thoughts that you guys have for yourselves. This has helped me tremendously, and from personal experience, when I put all of these tips that I just gave you guys into play, it really puts binging into perspective for me, and I no longer have those binge eating thoughts, or if I do, I know how to overcome them. If you guys want to comment down below, we can kind of create a little community if you are struggling or you need any help. I or my followers or anyone who's watching this video, I encourage you guys to communicate with each other, help one another out, and I'll try my best to do the same. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you guys all in a future one. Bye guys.